can't hear it. Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about text mode arts. Text mode arts for me is mainly about ANSI and ASCII, not teletext or not Petsky and stuff, even though they kind of drop into the same category. My talk is going to be about the history from my viewpoint of ANSI and ASCII arts, how it came about, and what differs the Pc Ascii, ASCII, Amiga ASCII, and so on. There's a few kind of different flavors in doing that stuff. Some people think that it's not fair to use colors and stuff, and then therefore not call it ASCII anymore. But that's a different story. And to talk about shortly about the art scene these days, it's fledgling, but it's still alive, kind of. So this is kind of like a view on the history. And also, if we have time, show some techniques and tutorials. Unfortunately, the few main sites that the ANSI and ASCII artist people use are offline at the moment. So that kind of is a bummer. But I did a few kind of examples on how to color sheet stuff. Sorry. And how to color stuff and so on. And my way of working is kind of iterative, so it might take a few hours to come up with something sensible. And I don't think you want to be here for that long. My name is Vga, or H7. The H7 has definitely no meaning. Back in 1996, it was cool to have some kind of a cool nick. And I thought that H7 is nice to draw. And back at the times, I didn't have like contacts in the international demo scene or anything like that, so I sticked with the H7. And then when I came to my first demo party, it was like, what's your name? I'm H7. Hi, what? So, but that's, some people call me just Velikani or Kani or something. I've been in demo scene since 1995. I've always been interested in computers. I'm kind of a, what you might say, a traditional geek. During the time, I've been kind of a group whore and got some nice-looking groups, TriStar and Red Sectoring, Accession, Hirmo and Damons, and so on. And Blocktronics, of course, the main ANSI group we have. I do a lot of organizing stuff. We organized demo parties since '96. I've been an assembly organizer as well, quite a long time, since early 2000 something. Kept a 10-year break at the point, but still. Other hobbies are like regular stuff, traveling and so on. But the reason I got into text mode arts was because I established the BBS, and you're going to see a lot of pictures of the BBS that I have, because back in the days when you established the BBS, a bulletin board system that was reachable by modem, the system was online 22 from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. since my family also wanted to use the modem line. And well, it was kind of hard to come by with the art for a PD lamer, public domain lamer like me for art, so I decided to try it myself, and that's how I got interested in the things. It's mostly it's like a way to vent and relax and stuff like this. Just spend some time on something else than editing. But the origins were the ASCII. One of the things was bulletin board systems. The second one was info files for groups and so on. Info files are things, if you've ever downloaded illegal release of some software, you probably have seen an info file, info text of the group, and there's a logo with cracker and supplier and so on. And then the BBSs that are kind of fledgling at the moment. I still have one. It's one of the 3 BBSs, I guess, in Finland, still online. I run it on Telnet, so I don't have to buy a landline anymore. But the default BBSs look like crap. It was utterly disgusting, like with yellow boxes and pink color and stuff like that. So you just had to modify it to look cool in the underground kind of a way of looking at the demo scene and everything like that. Since I was like 15, 16, and it was so exciting to be a part of an underground subculture of things. So it was pretty awesome. And the BBSs, they had like really awesome looking, sometimes, if the sysop was elite enough, They had really nice-looking big scrolling ANSIs in the beginning. I'll show you some of those. And sysops also added text files to the files that were uploaded into the BBSs. So word got around about the BBSs and cool BBSs by sysops pushing stuff into the zip files and then uploading them somewhere else. And people downloaded and uploaded some. So you might end up with a single file release that had 5 or 6 text files in it as well. And I'm not sure, because a lot of the people I've talked with who are sort of younger demo sceners have no touch on the actual BBSing stuff. Show of hands who have actually been in a BBS. Awesome. Nice. So, anyways, the info files and the BBS ads, there were this left one is from my BBS. I'm using a lot of stuff from my BBS because I have like permission to do so, but also on the one of the cool-looking ANSI pirate team BBSs that's around still these days as well. So the advertisement would have information about the authors of the BBS or the maintainers, sysops, or the system, all the nice affiliations of like Spaceballs, Decadence, Accession, Primitive, and well, it would have been really cool in the 90s to have a Spaceballs world headquarters, but now I just know a guy called Menace, and we were having beers in Norway, and hey, can I have like the world headquarters affiliation of the Spaceballs? Sure you can, my mate. And then it was that. But back in the days, you would really have to have a really awesome BBS, really famous people who would actually post stuff there and go there, frequent there, if you would have to, if you were to have a nice affiliation and so on. And there's a distribution site list, which is immensely long and so on. On the right side, there's a example of a package of Hirmu Muna demo, which is kind of legendary Finnish group and demo as well. And in the zip file, you can see an advertisement for the Eternal Fire, which is in Amiga ASCII format. They boast that they have a really nice 24 hours a day line with US robotic Sportster, and that used to be the toughest stuff ever. And they also say that there are some headquarters and so on, and they have a new user password that's elite as hell. And they also have a nice month top uploader competition, first uploader who uploads more stuff into the BBS with Z modem or U modem or something like that gets a half-a-liter bottle of booze. Pretty neat. The scrolling things are quite typical these days, at least for BBSs. Sometimes they can be 2,000 lines long, so it takes a bit of time to go through all of them. It's pretty cumbersome, actually. I have a few in my BBS since it's been online since '96. So people have drawn, different artists have drawn different stuff for me throughout the ages. So there's quite a selection to choose from. But people don't like to spend time looking at the single ANSI piece every second time they log into a BBS. So I try to keep it short. BBS called Black Flag. It's a pirate theme thing. It's ACID, a legendary ANSI group headquarters. You connect to a BBS, you start with some sort of an advertisement acknowledgement, you log on to the system, or you apply for an account or something like that. But the reason why they have these is that, like I mentioned, the default BBS was really crude. It would just bump you straight into the login, say that, oh, this is PC board or Mystic BBS or something like that, and then you would log into the system and have a few apps, one-liners where people can post stuff and so on, or whatever, all kinds of information that the sysop can come up with. Then you would end up in the main menu. Main menus are really, well, there's a different take on the subject. Some people like to have a lot of information, like on the commands. These are the commands you can pop in the BBS and start like door games or games inside the BBS that also run on text mode and so on. There's some really awesome stuff, but I decided to use this one because the black flag is kind of cool. And, well, that's it on the BBS stuff. The techniques that are used are pretty much the Pc Ascii, which is called block ASCII, and Pc ANSI and so on, and Amiga ASCII these days. The things worth mentioning are the 80 by 25, which is the default resolution, so to say, of the MS-DOS prompt. So everything that was done in those days was pretty much in 80 by 25, because it wouldn't fit into the screen otherwise. And you would have to spare one line from the bottom, because you would have like the information that I showed here on the bottom line about your terminal program and so on. So it wouldn't scroll like in an ugly way. The main thing with between ANSI and ASCII stuff is that you have 16 colors, and of those 16 colors, you can use the first 8 as a background color. So you can't go like bright magenta and white. You can do that in a modern day programs, but it's going to look horrible. Like I said, it could be argued that colored ASCII is not like ASCII anymore, it's just ANSI and so on, but I don't know. It's also my default kind of screen size for doing stuff. I like doing small scale stuff. The techniques in the things are divided into different categories, and sometimes there are groups of text mode artists that are focused on primarily on ANSI or ASCII or Amiga ASCII, because like mentioned, I'm a group whore, and I like affiliation and stuff. I write the old school stuff and old school things. So I'm in a group called Blocktronics and lead a group called Break ASCII, which is focused only on Pc Ascii and some Amiga stuff. And I'm also a member of Divine Stylers, which is from the mid-90s, early 90s Amiga ASCII group as well. These are kind of like the regular use cases, and I took the 2 of the most well-known logos in the Juarez scene. And these are the examples of the info files. The Fairlight info file is kind of legendary. You've probably seen it on some demo parties, on T-shirts and stuff. And the Razer logo as well, they're pretty well known. They're made in the 90s, and they stick with the stuff. And in the bottom you have my PC game, which was a PC Juarez group as well. But the coolest thing was that the Juarez groups really like the Pc Ascii logo stuff. Even though they can't view it in regular notepad and stuff, it looks really horrible because the notepad doesn't really support out of the box the ASCII blocks and so on. It looks garbled stuff, and you have like difficulties. If you ever downloaded the releases, it looks pretty horrible and doesn't really make any sense, but this is how it should look like in a DOS prompt. The way of doing things could be that there would be 7-bit ASCII, so there wouldn't be blocks. You would just use X, commas and dots and underscores and lines and so on. So it would make some sense in the notepad as well. There Prestige and stuff, I think they're all gone by now, and Team 54 and so on. But they all really wanted to use that stuff, and they wanted to have those ASCIIs as well in their BBSs where they were supporting, because they uploaded stuff into their group affiliation BBSs, where the releases would flow into all parts of the world as well. And then they moved into FTPs and so on, and FTPs have a lot more logos and so on. So they wanted more ASCII, and the demand for ASCII arts, demand for some person who would actually draw a full-size setup of an FTP site, 30-something logos with top uploaders and so on, it was kind of high, and nobody wanted to do that in that way. But this is Pc Ascii at its best, I guess. These are some examples of the Amiga ASCII stuff. The other one is from my BBS, surprisingly, and the second line as well. Well, it says Ascii and El Bananas, which was my BBS's name in the end of 90s. I don't know why I came up with that name, but who knows. Then you have the second line saying who's online. BBSs that had a lot of nodes meant that you would have a lot of landlines connected to your house or your apartment building and so on, and it was quite expensive. But nowadays with Telnet, it's practically free. But you would have these kind of screens in the login process of the BBS, and you would let people to see who's online in the BBS if you want to start into a multi-node chat. That was before the instant messengers and internet and so on. So you could talk to someone who is actually on the BBS at the same time and probably change infos and talk about different BBSs and maybe get some new access to another BBS to download new stuff, which was of course quite Juarez focused. The Amiga ASCII stuff is quite versatile. Amiga itself doesn't have these many colors, but people can use the colors, and terminal programs can emulate the colors and so on. So it's pretty. You can see that they are mostly made out of lines, different kind of the pipes and whatever they're called, backslashes and so on. And that's the way the Amiga ASCII works, kind of. There's no same kind of setup. The Amiga ASCII itself is quite interesting because they had a pretty nice influence from the graffiti arts. Some of the, I don't know if you can see it, but for example, the mail scan is made by a guy called Sperm Whale from Twilight. It has a really nice kind of a graffiti kind of way of doing things. If you've seen the old graffitis from the 80s, it's pretty much the same kind of way that they shape the letters in a one certain graffiti style. And the other one is a main menu from The Yard, which is a German, still online, kind of like a Juarez BBS as well. This is Pc Ascii. It's some of the pieces that people from, I don't know where they actually are from, but some guys made ASCII from a BBS. It's quite much more versatile than the block ASCII and ANSI itself. It's not just blocks and stuff. You can shape the use the double commas and dollar signs and so on to create kind of like a smooth round curve and so on, unlike with the block ASCII. You can do pretty weird stuff. Some of the stuff like in Amiga ASCII as well is pretty hard to read at some points. They're supposed to say Haciend, both of them. I can kind of see that in the upper one, but then there's the all kinds of stuff. Well, the main difference between PC and Amiga ASCII stuff is, however, the character set. In the blue, light blue circle rectangle, you can see the mainly used ANSI character blocks. It's 4 different characters that are used for the drawing the ANSI stuff, mostly, I say. And then there's the Amiga ASCII character set. I'm not sure if it's actually 100% correct, but different kind of blocks and different kind of shading things, so it doesn't really allow people to do shaded blocks. So to kind of like conclude on that part, the Pc Ascii is the colored block stuff. Pc Ascii is blocks and that kind of made out of different kind of characters, and usually it's pretty versatile and really awesome. And Amiga ASCII is made out of lines, and so it's kind of, I draw all of these different kind of styles, and I sometimes get fond of Amiga ASCII, and sometimes I have a period of Pc ANSI or Pc Ascii or so on. There's no practical use for the Pc Ascii anymore, like to most of the text mode arts even. The Current day text mode art scene is it's kind of like I would say more like a community than a need-based system or a network of artists and people who like to draw stuff. The internet took away the BBSs. Nobody gave a damn about dialing the BBSs anymore, since internet was so much faster. You could get a cable line from the United States for nickels at the times in the mid-90s. In the end of 90s, it came to Finland as well. So BBSs started to die, and also because people got into universities, got into schools, they moved out of home and didn't want to pay for the landline. It was quite expensive, I think, at the time. I killed my landline in '98 when I was doing my military service, and obviously didn't have the 30 marks at the time that it cost for a month to have the landline. So some of the groups and some of the artists, they kind of stick around and stuck around, and they formed this new kind of art scene. It was really quiet for a while, but then it started to get reviving again because people started to graduate. They had kids and families, and they kind of wanted to do something that they have done in the youth. So maybe we should draw ANSI and stuff. It's awesome. The art packs, because we publish art packs and they consist of different pieces of art, or text mode files. So you can download them and view them in a viewer like Pablo. And Amiga ASCII artists, they usually traditionally put everything into one text file with the beginning and the end and some dividers and so on. So the Amiga ASCII stuff is it's like a whole piece instead of just one piece of art that gets zipped up in the thing. There's some demo groups that do only text mode arts, like Alpha Design, which I'm also a member of. We have some pretty awesome demos. Also the ones that I don't do. And then there's the text mode demo competition that no longer exists, but it has some nice text mode demos. They usually run in the 80 by 50 thing. But pretty much like everything back in the 90s, everything is still online. It's just not BBSs, and it's far more reachable than back in the days. The kind of downside is that not many people draw these days. There's a few demo parties that have competitions on ANSI ASCII arts. Revision is one of them. Evoke is one of them in 2 weeks. They have even prizes for ANSI ASCII arts. I remember when I was organizing assembly in the beginning of 2000 something, there was a unofficial and even an official ANSI competition stuff here. But not so many entries, so it was scrapped, unfortunately, but understanding that quite well. There are some groups that still exist, like the Blocktronics, Impure, Galza, Break ASCII. Impure is pretty sweet because they release stuff constantly. They just don't do the same kind of Blocktronics stuff that we do, that we just release whenever, maybe 4 or 5 packs a year, or 6 packs a year, or 2 packs a year, or something like that. There's a nice tool called Pablo that kind of, because you could connect to different artists and you could use the same canvas to draw at the same time with people. So it was quite revolutionary in a way. And one of the pieces is actually next on the thing, but it's kind of scaled. Then there's also the good part of people who like BBSs for some reason, because it has a kind of a underground feeling. I don't have the same kind of feeling because I've been through that stuff since '95, so it's not new or not so cool. I rarely even dial my own BBS, but still. But the Pablo Draw thing was really a game changer. This stuff is all ANSI. It's scaled down because it doesn't fit into the screen. It's called Acid Trip, and it's made for Demo Splash, an American demo party, and it obviously won the whole thing. But it was a lot of people, I think more than 10 people, maybe less than 20 people drew for the piece. So these individual pieces that are tied together in the ANSI, they are made by individual artists. Some of the people made several pieces. You can, if you have looked at the things long enough, you could probably spot the different artists and their styles and so on. But it's still quite awesome. It makes a really hectic background picture. It has one of the biggest ANSIs ever. It even has Steve Jobs on the left side. And there's also one ANSI that I was actually going to show. It even has Hitler in it. It made it to Wired because it was 10,000 lines long. And the funniest thing with the whole thing is that they get drawn character by character or with a mouse. So it takes a lot of time and effort to do these kind of things. I don't know why people do that. I don't know why I do that, but it's a nice way of relaxing and clicking through things and changing colors and changing characters and so on. But the whole ANSI thing these days is a kind of a community effort. There's a few places where you can go for look for art and inspiration. Like I mentioned, they are offline. And truck, yo, am I correct? But is the ASCII Arena still? No, but you're awesome.
Yeah, but I'll get it online before the end of the year.
No worries. 16 colors and text modes are also offline. But the online galleries, they present the ASCIIs and ANSIs from the early 90s in a really nice viewable format and so on, so you can just look at the pieces when they come back offline. The host of the textmode.es is traveling at the moment, so he's not able to fix the damn portal. I'm going to show you two tutorials and talk a bit about the way of coloring and doing things. But if you have any questions right now, feel free to shoot. Nah, Finland. Let's see if I don't break this thing. The first thing, I mentioned that I have an iterative way of drawing things. So I wanted to show you how to draw a ball, like a small circle and so on. This is Pablo Draw. There's a bunch of tools you can use for only coloring the blocks. You can draw lines or draw rectangles or circles, and you can undo and redo and copy and paste all kinds of stuff. It's quite a nifty tool. It's not like the acid draw that was used back in the days. On the right side, you can see the Vga view of the whole thing, so how it actually looks like in a bigger picture. If you have a huge piece, you would probably want to see if the proportions are right and so on. So what I use for this is the full blocks, so to say the ones that were in the light blue circle, rectangle. There's the shading blocks. There's 3 kinds of them. There's the full colored block as well. Then there's the half blocks you can use for raster graphics if you want. And then there's the slim half blocks, or I don't know how to call them, but I call them slims. And so you would basically start with a rough image or a rough version of a circle using the full blocks. You would soften the edges with the half blocks and then add some small finishing touches as well. So it kind of looks like a circle. And because I kind of figured out how do I color a circle? Hey, Pepsi has a circle. Xbox has one, but Pepsi is way more cooler. Sorry, Microsoft. So maybe you start with the base colors that are the red and the blue, because you're going to want to do some highlighting and stuff. Then you add the shading blocks on the stage 5. I do quite crude shading because it doesn't really make sense to try to achieve a full way of I don't know what's it called, like a photorealistic thing in a 80 by 25. And then you do some light colors that are shown in this right sum column, so you can use highlights. Then, because it looks pretty lame to have just a Pepsi kind of logo here. So maybe you want to use a background color and use the light gray color to make a small shadow or something. I don't know. But this is my way of doing. So then I figured that, yeah, I'm going to write a Pepsi on the bottom. So I cut out the white color and use only the black background. So yeah, this is kind of the way to make the thing fit in a way and see that it works. And then shape it a bit better to be able to see that maybe it actually fits and so on. There's the Pc Ascii, like the rough sketches. Then you do a Pepsi thing. Of course, this doesn't look right. It's supposed to be the bigger ball, and the Pepsi logo is, I googled it up, and it's supposed to be a lot bigger. So instead of like making a bigger ball, which would create a lot of wasted time for me, I just decided to scrap it and make a smaller logo instead. It doesn't look so smooth, but it kind of still looks like the Pepsi thing. So that's my way of doing ANSI. I keep drawing stuff, and then I end up with something else that I was supposed to go with. Then let's see, where do you go? Other thing is with the Pc Ascii. I was watching the show Narcos on Netflix, and I ended up drawing there's a mugshot of Pablo Escobar. So I ended up drawing it. I don't know why, but I just ended up drawing Pablo Escobar and call it blockane, because blocktronics is addictive, and blockane comes from, the illegal drugs. And for this I used because I wanted to use some kind of a highlighting color, I used the other characters from the PC set. So there's not sure if I have them here, but you can edit the character set, and you can use different kind of setups of keys and so on. So you can easily type them down with F1 to F12 and draw the piece. Go away. So if you want to color a Pc Ascii, it's a bit different than from the coloring the actual Pc Ascii. It takes some time to figure out what kind of colors you want to use. I decided to use, because the original mugshot was in black, white kind of thing, so I decided to use all the grays and blacks and so on, and also use the black space to line up the hair without having to actually draw the hair. So it kind of looks pretty crude, as well as all of my stuff usually. And then you might even add some background colors from the character set or the color picker, so you can smooth down the coloring or do some edges on the actual kind of highlighting or something. So then you end up with a Pablo Escobar. Of course, okay. How do I do presentations for a living, but this seems not to go so well. I'm going to show you some few pieces as well. I put them behind the whole thing since we have like 5 minutes-ish. This presentation is available if you want to download it. If you can't get the URL now, the nearby forest where we have a barbecue with some few friends. You can get a presentation of Blocktronics that explains the whole text mode art thing, maybe from our group-wise perspective quite well. You can go to the 16 colors and text mode ES. You can download the Pablo Draw stuff. You can stalk me on Twitter if you want, and so on. Also, if you want to download the thing, I put the links to the tutorials here. When the site comes back, it's awesome to download them as well. But if you start looking for like Blocktronics on Google image search, you will start looking at finding a lot of pieces that were created quite recently, actually. Back in the days, people used to draw a lot of stuff from the comics, especially the American artists. They really loved the comic rips and so on. So comic rips are rip-offs from comic books. So you would have Spawn and you have Superman, or you would have, well, that's DC. Anyway, you would have a lot of comic characters in the 90s ANSIs, and so it was really awesome. Some of the people we are dealing with are like American artists called Creep Fever and Text Mode Exorcist. They are quite talented, and they have a, I would say, kind of a unique style of drawing things and unique style of picturing, let's say, female beauty. And, well, Jim Morrison as well from the Text Exorcist. The things you can do with ANSI stuff is quite versatile. These are from Grindstone and Avenging Angel. The first one is from Canada, and the Avenging Angel is from Australia. And the third one is Filth, he's from USA. So we have all these cool scenics, except for me, who is H7, like the light bulb. And a lot of monsters, comic heroes, robots. We really like robots in Blocktronics. It's like the robots are here to rule and everything. Then there's the different kind of, this one is from Luciano Aires. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right. A guy used to call himself Enzo. He's a Brazilian guy, really awesome dude. Been with him in several groups throughout the years, and he has also a unique style of drawing things. Monsters, different kind of things. I don't know where he gets that stuff from, and it's kind of like nice hours and hours. Me and Luciano, we drew a piece for a revision ANSI competition, and all the time when I post something new, I'm looking at this kind of thing, and then Luciano comes back with a huge piece like, I drew this in 2 hours. Like, you make me look so bad. But we won the competition mainly because of Luciano, I guess. And I don't like to say good things about myself. And some monsters, some obscure stuff, probably from Luciano or something as well. But these are the kind of things you can do with text mode arts. And like I said, if you have questions or if you want to just talk about ANSI and ASCII stuff, just come and talk to me. The Pablo Draw thing is available for Linux, it's available for OS X, and it's available for Windows as well. And I use mostly all the three. It's nice to draw some stuff while you're on the road, doing in the middle of the work trip. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the text mode arts. So thank you for listening, and enjoy the pixel graphics competition that's coming next. Thank you.